It was just a one-time thing. And if he didn't know, then there's no problem, right? After 6 years of marriage, Ellie and I were close to seeing all of our plans pay off. We had a strict savings plan when we first got married, and now we had finally saved enough for a down payment on a house, and we're going to work on filling that house with kids. I'm David Wallace, and I had my own business as a cybersecurity consultant, which allows me to work remotely since I didn't need an office for my business. If someone asked me about my marriage to Ellie, I would tell them that we were deeply in love and committed to each other. Then I would tell them how we share all of our secrets and intimacy and enjoy an amazing sex life and unbreakable love. Given our love for each other, our financial situation, and our shared goals for children, I would bet my life that our future was cloudless. There were times when we watched other couples struggle and divorce, only to realize that our love and marriage was on another level, and nothing would ever come between us. Delusional thinking is not an intentional process, but something that convinces your soul and turns into a belief. I was a believer. Ellie was working as a regional manager for a national technology company. Her company was growing, and a new vice president was brought in from the Manhattan office. Richard Jones was a young, cocky graduate student who was one of those people who knew more than everyone else and liked to demonstrate his power and position over his employees. It was then that my belief system began to be questioned. Since he showed up 3 months ago, my wife had become cold, testy, and not very pleasant around the house. She wrote it off to stress at work, but I felt there was something more behind the story. I tried my best to be a good husband. I was patient, brought home flowers, tried to plan dates at her favorite places, and tried to understand her concerns. One night when she was upset, she told me all about her new boss. She said Richard was a real asshole and made everyone nervous and stressed out. I advised her to quit, but she said she had applied for a transfer to another division of the company and that we needed money for our new house. She said that now was not the time to quit and would like to wait a little longer. Ellie explained that there was a good chance that the transfer would happen because of her experience with the company's software and that the corporate office liked her. Her current job required her to visit other branches 3 times a month, and now she felt that she would have to make 1 or 2 more business trips before the transfer would be approved. That was 6 weeks and 3 trips ago. The transfer was not happening and the stress at home was increasing. This led to her treating me more like a roommate than a husband. I let her know I wasn't happy, but she said to be patient and things would get better because Richard had become nicer to the staff. Her coworkers thought that maybe the corporate office had told him about the drop in morale in the office, and he should change his attitude. She also felt that the transfer could still happen. I could tell she was trying to be more polite at home, but she was still abrupt with me. She was unwilling to have sex more than twice a week, and even then I felt it was pity sex, not the love-making we once shared. Friday night she came home and announced that she was going to a corporate office in California for 2 nights with her manager, Richard Jones. She said she was going to find out about her transfer while she was there. What I didn't know at the time was that her stress was due to the pressure Richard was putting on her to have sex with him. Ellie was a sexy 28-year-old woman, 5'7", skinny, with large breasts and the face of an angel. Up until the last 3 months, Ellie never gave me any cause for concern. I later learned that when Richard began his predatory behavior, she had pulled him away, which humiliated and hurt his ego, and that was the cause of the stress she was experiencing at work. Obviously, this was pure sexual harassment. Why she didn't tell me or her HR department is beyond me and remains a mystery. After Richard realized his methods were not working, he changed tactics and began flirting, teasing, complimenting, and promising Ellie a great future at the company. After several lunches and many conversations about her marriage and sex life, he convinced her to consider being with him just once and what it would mean for her future. All the stress she was under combined with the impending act of betrayal created this devil woman, and obviously the way she handled the impending affair was to blame me and make me look like the bad guy to justify her one-time infidelity and cover up her guilt. We hadn't had sex or intimacy in the past 2 weeks, and she wasn't interested in any of my flirtations. I didn't beg for sex, and I let her know that if things didn't change quickly, we would be in a bad position. She promised that things would be back to normal soon, and to just give her some time to sort out her problems at work. I was in love with her and wanted things to go back to the way they were just a few months ago. I didn't know what to do, but I knew things had to change, so I let her know that I would give her time until she returned from her trip to save our marriage. Our 7th anniversary was approaching, and I kept trying to get things back to normal between us and rekindle her affection before her trip, but to no avail. The day she was about to leave town, I came home early to surprise her with a box of her favorite chocolates to take with her on the trip, so she would know how much I loved her and wanted our life back on track. I knew she had taken the day off to pack and was going to leave for the airport at 3 p.m. I got home at noon with a smile on my face, hoping to surprise her and tell her how much I loved her. After I entered the house, I called out to her as soon as I walked through the front door. But to my surprise, the house was empty. I entered the bedroom and saw her luggage on the bed and a tight dress on the rack. She always dressed beautifully, was confident in her body, and liked to look fashionable, and I always liked the way she looked. Standing alone in our bedroom, I called her cell phone to see where she was and was met with short answers and a curt greeting. "Hi, what do you want?" There was annoyance in her voice at my calling. It hurt. After all my efforts, I felt like I was bothering her, and I was the one she didn't want to talk to. "Well, that's a nice greeting. I wanted to see how your day went and what you're doing. Look, I'm going to lunch with my sister. You already know I'm leaving for the airport at 3 o'clock. Is there anything else you need to know?" Shocked by her address, I just wished her a pleasant flight and hung up without saying goodbye or telling her I loved her. I usually ended our conversation that way, and I wondered if she even noticed. I was hurt and angry. I sat down on the bed next to her folding bag, trying to figure out what the hell was going on. The way she was talking and treating me was unacceptable. My anger began to flare as I sat staring at my phone. I wasn't going to wait for her to come home, so I decided to get out of the house. As I got up to leave, my gaze was caught by a purple-colored object in her open suitcase. I had never spied on my wife before, but for some reason I reached into her suitcase and picked up a plastic bag that contained a purple item. To my shock, I pulled out an unopened package that contained a see-through purple sexy nightgown. Also in the bag were sexy thong panties and a purple bra to match, as well as a pair of unopened nylon stockings over a purple garter belt. Remembering that she hadn't worn lingerie for me for the past 2 years, I realized that she had purposely packed this for someone else. Suddenly, everything fell into place. I then examined the suitcase more closely and found a box of condoms in her side pocket of her bag, still in the package. It was then that everything fell into place. The way she treated me. No sex, cold and aloof. The relationship between us had changed since she started going out of town with her boss 3 months ago. I realized I was holding evidence of an affair. She had packed these items for the trip to show them to another man, most likely Richard. In a split second, I realized I no longer wanted to be part of her game or her cuckold. I went down to my office, grabbed a piece of paper and wrote a short note. Shaking with anger, I wrote, "Ellie, I hope he likes your sexy lingerie. It's now quite clear why you've changed over the past few months. It's obvious that you don't need me anymore. Don't worry. By the time you get home, I'll be gone and you'll never see me again. I would never have married you if I had known you were a cheating whore, but as they say, live and learn. The only good thing that came out of this is that you will never be the mother of my children. I'm happy we delayed starting a family. Perhaps Richard can help you in that area. David." I then took a stapler out of my desk drawer, carefully opened the linen package, and attached the paper to its expensive and delicate material. Then I carefully folded everything back into her suitcase. I made sure I left no indication that I was home and drove to a local restaurant to be alone and eat something to try and calm my upset stomach. Ellie on the day of her betrayal. I met my sister Jenny for lunch because I needed to tell someone about what I was going to do. Call it guilt or fear, but I knew I could trust her to be a good listener. All this stress was driving me crazy, and I needed to get it off my chest before my head exploded from everything I was going through. After we ordered off the menu, I confessed everything and was relieved when I laid it all out. I felt Jenny's anger as she looked at me like I was crazy. "Why are you jeopardizing your marriage over this asshole? You've told me in past conversations that he's a jerk and that he's been stalking you for the past few months. Why don't you quit or file a sexual harassment case? Jenny, I've gotten to know him a lot better in the last month, and he's going through a rough divorce. He's been cranky and taking his pain out on us, but for the last month he's been extremely nice. He asked me to be with him just once, and I don't know why, but I agreed. We are going to do it once on this trip, and he promised we would never talk about it again, and he will help me get promoted in the company. So you're going to cheat on David, the guy you've loved since college, for what? A possible promotion? You realize he's turning you into a whore, right? No, it's not like that. I actually feel sorry for Richard, and I know he just needs it. Besides, David will never know, and we'll be back to normal when I get back. I'm sorry, David's calling me. Let me take the call. Hey, what do you want? David, I'm going to lunch with my sister. You already know I'm leaving for the airport at 3 o'clock. Is there anything else you need to know? Okay. As I tucked my phone back into my purse, I wondered why Jenny was looking at me with disgust. I turned to her and asked in an angry voice, "What? Ellie, did you just talk to your husband like that? That was the rudest thing I've ever seen you do. What is going on with you?" What are you talking about, Jenny? Do you realize how you just talked to David? Are you out of your mind? Jenny, what are you talking about? I just answered the phone quickly, that's all. You answered the phone and you asked, "What do you want? Do you know what my husband would do if I talked to him like that?" And the way you ended the conversation, "Is there anything else you need to know?" No, goodbye. No, I love you. No, I'll miss you. How do you think he feels after being talked to like that? Jenny, what's going on with you? I'm worried about your judgment and the way you've been acting. Oh my God, I didn't realize I was talking to him like that. I really said it, didn't I? What was I thinking? Allie, I think this affair you're about to have has affected your mind and is jeopardizing your marriage. You told me you were tired of David complaining that there were problems in your marriage and that you were ignoring him. Look, it sounds to me like you are sabotaging your marriage and treating your husband like crap to compensate for the guilt you must be feeling. Oh my God, you're right. I've been a bitch taking my problems out on poor David. I should call him back and apologize. Do you want some privacy? No, stay here. I'm on the phone. Damn it, he's not answering. Maybe he's busy. He always answers my calls. I'm calling again, I hope he answers. He's not answering? Ellie, send him a message. Damn it. He got mad, and now I don't blame him, and I have to leave in less than 2 hours. Well, sister, you better apologize and pull yourself together. I don't think what you have planned with Richard is a good idea, and you need to stop this nonsense before you ruin everything. You guys were so good together, and you're going to start a family. Think about it, Allie. I know you're right, but I'm not sure I can stop it now. It's just one time, and my family life and work will get back on track. Richard has had so many problems with the divorce, and he's really depressed. He promised it would just be one time and it would help him because I remind him so much of his wife. You know he's playing you, don't you? Allie, you can't be that blind. No, you're wrong. He's a nice guy deep down, and his wife is trying to get full custody of his kids and destroy him with alimony. When he opened up to me, I felt his pain, and there was a connection between us. I feel like I need to do that, at least once after all the time we've spent together. Did you talk to him about your own marriage or how David feels about you? Lowering my gaze to my hands, and after a long pause, I spoke softly. I may have said something about David complaining and us not having enough sex. Ellie, you're an idiot, and you better pray that David never finds out that you shared yours and David's intimate relationship with another man. I have to tell you, Allie, I think you've already gone too far. And if David finds out, your marriage is definitely in trouble. Can't you see how messed up things are and how you're jeopardizing everything? Look, I see your point, and you're right. That's why it's only going to happen once. I realize now how I treated David, and when I come back from this trip, I will make it up to him. He will never know, and it will never happen again. I will never talk about it again because it will never be on my mind. It will be forgotten. You're really delusional. You're going to have sex with another man, and you believe that once it happens, you're going to forget about it? I'm telling you, it's going to change you. It will change the way you think about your husband. Nothing good will come out of this. Please think again. Jenny, thank you for your concern, but I'm a grown woman and I can handle this. I mean, it's just sex and it's a one-time thing. David will never know, and as they say, no harm, no foul. Well, I hope you know what you're doing, but I want you to remember what I'm saying. You're making a big mistake. Please think about that before you do something you can never undo. You will forever be an unfaithful wife, and I hope you can live with that. Don't worry, I'll deal with it, and in 2 weeks you'll see a happy David. We'll be working on building our family. I'm sad and I feel terrible about this because I know nothing good will come out of this. As your sister, I don't want you to do this. Please cancel your trip, quit your job, and apologize to David for your recent behavior. David is my friend too, and if he ever finds out that I knew about this, he will never speak to me again. Thank you, Jenny. I love you and I appreciate your concern. I will think about what you said, but I still need to go on this trip. I will talk to David and apologize for my bad behavior before I leave this afternoon. David's thoughts at lunch. These feelings were new and unwelcome. As I sat at a table at our local restaurant, I began to reflect on the past few months and how my marriage had gone from a state of bliss to complete crap. I had to wipe my eyes a few times so no one would see my weakness and pain. When I first sat down, all I felt was anger, but those feelings transformed into sadness and resentment as I fully felt the effects of my loss. The woman I loved and the marriage I had lived for were now distant memories. Then, as I pondered my situation, my feelings were replaced by feelings of humiliation and betrayal. How could she do this to me and our marriage? What had I done to turn her into a cheating wife? I knew I couldn't forgive her. I was never going to be with a woman who wanted to be with another man. My ego could never handle that. I know many of my friends have experienced the affair and will tell me to forgive her and get over it. Well, that's not going to happen. Then suddenly my feelings of anger returned when my phone rang and I saw Ellie's number. I wasn't going to answer her calls. Talking time is over, sweetheart. Your sweet, loving husband is gone. You woke the monster. Allie's leaving with Richard. Richard had booked first-class seats on their long flight to the West Coast to impress Allie. However, on the plane, Richard saw that she was upset when she learned that her husband wasn't returning her calls and text messages. When she told Richard that she had changed her mind about everything that was going on, he was quick-witted and once again played the role of the resentful husband to get her back on track. He brought her a Bloody Mary and convinced her to relax and that everything would be okay. Ellie, calm down. Everything is fine, and I'm sure there's a good reason for it. Maybe he's in a meeting or he just can't talk. I'm sure he'll call you back. Other than that, nothing happened and everything is fine. After we get back from our meetings, I want you to take a few days off and spend time reconnecting with your husband. I just wish I had a loving wife like you. You know she won't even let me talk to my girls, and it hurts so bad. You are a great wife, and I know everything will be okay. Ellie saw the tears in the predator's eyes as he talked about his girls, and she fell for him again. After the second serving, she forgot her troubles and took his hand, trying to comfort the suffering man. It was then that he realized he had her and was going to finally fuck the stupid bitch and send her back to her husband. He had worked too hard to let this end right at the finish line. It was all a game to him. Sending women back to their husbands was what he lived for. To make the wife realize that she had given herself to another man and at the same time lost respect for her husband. The wife would remember what they had done and keep it in mind when she returned to her husband. What he liked even more was when he would confront the husband after he had defiled his wife at a business event or some casual meeting. When that happened, it gave him the greatest sense of power. It was a drug, and he was hooked on these feelings that made him feel responsible and complete. It also made him a dangerous person around these poor, stupid, and gullible women. When they arrived at the hotel, they walked hand in hand to the front desk. Ellie was a little shocked when she realized there was only one room, and she would have to spend the entire trip with him. As they stepped away from the counter, she looked at Richard and said, "I don't have a room?" "Allie, we talked about this. You and I are going to be together on this trip and never again. Let's just enjoy this one experience like we promised each other." "I thought you said it was a one-time thing." "Richard, I'm not sure." "Relax, Allie. It's gonna be fine. One trip, not one time. Look, until we get home, you're my girl. Just this once. Pretend you're my wife, and I promise I'll treat you like the princess you deserve to be. No one will ever know, and it will forever be our secret. They checked into the room, and she felt a strong rush of guilt when she saw that there was only one queen-sized bed. She realized that for the first time since she had gotten married, she would be sleeping with another man and was simultaneously overwhelmed with excitement as the guilt faded. The mixed feelings made her dizzy, and she forced herself to go out onto the balcony for some fresh air. Richard assessed the situation, quietly stowed the bags in the closet, and joined her on the balcony overlooking the Pacific Ocean. "Isn't this relaxing? I booked this room knowing you'd love the ocean view." She nodded with tears in her eyes. "Yes, it's beautiful here." Richard turned to Allie, put his hand on her chin, and lifted her face to his. Looking intently into her eyes, he kissed her gently on the lips. After a few seconds, Allie responded to his kiss, which turned into a heated, romantic, tongue-tied, passionate kiss. Realizing what she had just done, she gently pushed him away and smiled. Richard knew he was making progress and wasn't going to rush things. He knew that in a few hours he would be completely inside this stupid woman. Then he would be with her all night long. All the while, he would know he was defiling her since her ignorant husband was miles away. He felt a wave of satisfaction wash over him as he smiled back, looking into her eyes. "That was nice, Ellie. We have dinner reservations in a couple hours, and I know you want to get ready. So I'm going down to the gym for a quick workout, and we'll be back in time to get ready." She nodded without saying anything, and watched as Richard grabbed his gym clothes and headed for the exit of the room. Sitting on the bed, she needed to talk to David and make sure everything was okay. Now that she realized how she had treated him, she wanted to apologize and make sure he was okay. She loved him and just wanted this trip to be over and their lives to go back to the way they were. Her heart raced as she dialed his cell phone. She prayed that he would answer and tell her he loved her, but there was no answer. He wasn't answering his phone, and she knew he was angry about her last conversation. She then sent him a text message, hoping it would help the situation. "David, my dear, I'm so sorry for the way I treated you on the phone today. I had a bad morning and I took it out on you. Please forgive me and I will make it up to you when I get home. I miss you so much, and I want you to know that I love you and I can't wait to start our family this weekend. Please call me. I need to hear your voice." Taking a deep breath, she got under the hot shower. Stepping out of the shower, she admired herself in the full-length mirror and was excited to be able to wear the new outfit she had bought. For the next 30 minutes, she worked meticulously on her makeup and hair. She was pleased with the impressive results of the evening and how her hair looked long and spectacular. Forgetting her message to David, she focused only on putting on her new outfit to see how sexy she looked. Soon, her thoughts returned to David and how she would wear the same outfit for him when she got home. Richard was in the middle of his run on the trainer when Allie went to her garment bag and pulled out a short black cocktail dress. It was a daring outfit that she had bought especially for this trip, showing off her beautiful breasts with a daring neckline. Tonight, she was going to be bold and go braless. The short skirt would give her long legs a sexy look with the new high heels she had also bought for this trip. After admiring the dress for a few moments, she went for her underwear and pulled out several items, including the lingerie she intended to wear for Richard that evening. Carefully laying everything out on the bed, she unbuttoned a new pair of sheer black pantyhose and pulled them down her long, smooth legs over her new ass thong. There was no need for a bra tonight, so she carefully slipped the dress on and then put on her high-heeled shoes. After adjusting the dress to make sure her firm, round breasts were covered, she walked over to the full-length mirror and marveled at the sexy woman looking back at her from the mirror. She smiled contentedly again, realizing how sexy she looked, and thought again about how her husband would enjoy taking off that dress and making sweet love to her when she got home. Then she looked at the clock and realized that Richard would be back in a few minutes, so she started to put things in order. She went back to the bed to put away the sexy lingerie she was going to wear that night, into the closet for a quick change of clothes when they got back from their dinner date. As she picked up the package from Victoria's Secrets, she noticed that it was already open and skewed. Looking closer, she saw a piece of paper attached to the underwear. The oddity puzzled her, and she wondered. Then she removed the delicate items and saw a handwritten note attached to the expensive underwear. Still confused, she read the note and immediately froze with fear. Her heart stopped as she read the note, and sadly her world came crashing down. The reality of what she was doing hit her hard. She was stunned and couldn't move as she stared at the note. Then suddenly a river of tears rushed from her eyes and she collapsed to her knees, wrapping her arms around her head. Now she lay on the carpet, sobbing and feeling an unimaginable level of hurt and anguish that she was unable to comprehend. Her thoughts. Now, in a state of complete panic, she called David's phone and left a voicemail in a trembling voice. "David, I got your note, and darling, nothing happened. I never did anything. Please forgive me. It was a stupid mistake, and I love you. Please call me and talk to me. I have to talk to you, baby. Trust me. Nothing happened. Please call me." When she realized he wasn't calling her back, she had left several long text messages and was now rocking back and forth in the big chair next to the bed. When Richard entered the room, he saw the train wreck and realized that something was about to derail his plans. "What's wrong, darling? Don't call me that. I'm not your darling, and because of you, I may have ended my marriage to the man I love. You got me into this situation, and now he's left me." "Allie, calm down. What are you talking about?" Richard saw the note on the bed that Allie was pointing at. A smile appeared on his face as he read it, and he had that wonderful feeling of satisfaction again. Fooling his husband was what he'd lived for, seducing his wife and ruining their lives. It all went back to his childhood, when his father had left his mother for another woman, and somehow that experience had warped him in the worst possible way. In his sick mind, it didn't even matter if he slept with her. He already had what he wanted. Taking her now would just be a bonus. So he would let her cry it out and then convince her that since her husband already thought she had sex with him, they might as well do it and enjoy it. He knew it wouldn't be an easy sell, but it was his gift. At least he had convinced himself of that, and his past experience with cheating wives had given him confidence in his skills. But Ellie didn't want to play this game anymore. She removed her heels and dress in front of Richard, completely ignoring his presence. He was sure she was about to pounce on him and get what she needed. Appearing naked right in front of him, he tensed in anticipation when he saw her amazing body. He stood up and pulled down his pants, waiting for Ellie to come over to him. When Ellie saw what he did, she just laughed. "You're fucking crazy if you think I'm ever going to touch you again. I have to go home to my husband and fix this mess you've made." Richard was angry when he realized he wasn't getting this sweet woman and spoke out in a tone she'd never heard before. "It's my fault? You stupid bitch. You're the one who agreed to this. You left your husband and agreed to have sex with me. I never forced you, and you made that choice on your own. Look at the outfit you just put on for our special night. It almost said, 'Please have sex with me.' Face it. If you really loved your husband, you would never have agreed to be my girlfriend for the weekend." "You bastard! How dare you talk to me like that? You're just an obnoxious dog, and I want nothing to do with you. You ruined my happy marriage, and I have no idea how to get David to forgive me and take me back. Hell, if the situation was reversed, I would divorce him and make his life a living hell. I hate you and what you've done." A furious Richard blurted back, "Of course it's all my fault. That kiss you gave me an hour ago speaks the truth. You enjoyed it, and you knew you wanted more. You wanted me to sleep with you and turn your world upside down. You know it." Ellie looked shocked by his outburst as he continued. "Just admit it, and stop accusing me of wanting to cheat on the man you say you love. You'll never convince me that you loved him and so easily agreed to cheat on him. You're just like all the other whores. You want to have a little fun on the side, as long as you don't get caught. Once you get caught, you blame the man who seduced you. Well, princess, you would never have let me seduce you, take you on a cross-country trip, and agree to a night of sex with me if you really loved your husband. You didn't even mind staying in the same room and sleeping with me. Yes, you must really love your husband. I can't imagine what you'd do if you didn't love the poor guy. Believe me, he'll be lucky if he finds out now that you're an unfaithful wife and can't be trusted before you have children." His words broke her soul. She knew he was right and that she had made her own choices. She blamed him for everything, but realized she could have said no at any time. Even her sister had warned her, but she made the decision to leave her husband and be with Richard. At that moment, she wasn't sure what hurt more, the fact that she realized Richard was right about her, or how much she had hurt her husband. Filled with remorse and guilt, she quickly gathered her things and went down to the lobby to see if the concierge could help her from having to blush at home. She needed to get home and tell David how much she loved him and that nothing had happened. After 20 minutes on the phone, it turned out that there were no seats available on any of the return flights that evening. She was stuck in San Diego until the morning, when she could catch a flight home and arrive around 6 p.m. It was too late, but with no options, she asked them to make a change. Then she realized she didn't have a hotel room and needed somewhere to sleep. The concierge, seeing how upset she was, tried to help her. She told her that she had found a room, and if she gave her a credit card, the room key would be ready in a few minutes. After giving her the credit card, she sat alone and thought about the last 3 months that David had described in her note. She realized that she had actually become an aloof wife and had treated David horribly out of guilt, taking out her frustration and stress on the dear man. When she saw the concierge's face, she became worried. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Wallace. Your card has been canceled. Do you have another card?" "Canceled? Oh my God, that can't be right. Here, try this one." She realized that David had canceled their joint cards when the other 2 cards didn't work. She panicked and tried to think of what she should do. There was no way she was going back to Richard's room. She would rather just stay up all night and wait for morning. With no other option, she swallowed her pride and called her sister. "Hello? Hi, Jenny, sorry to bother you." "Is everything okay, sis? What's wrong?" Ellie cried as soon as Jenny answered the phone. "I should have listened to you, but I didn't. David found out about my trip and put a note in my bag saying he'd left me. I'm stuck here and I'm trying to get home." "And I'm not going to say I told you that. That would be rude. What can I do to help?" "Well, David's not answering my calls or text messages, so he can't help me. I think he canceled our credit cards and I can't get a room. Could you give them your credit card to pay for the hotel room and I'll pay you when I get back?" "Damn it, Ellie. You're supposed to be the smart sister, but you sure haven't been very bright lately." "Sure, I'll help you out." She called her sister back an hour later. "Jenny, thanks for helping your idiot sister. I was able to get a room for the night. I'll be home on the morning flight. Do you think he'll forgive me?" "I'm not sure, sis. Have you heard from him?" "No, but I left him a few messages and told him nothing happened." "Well, good luck. The fact that he knew what you were going to do and you went on the trip is not a good sign. Keep trying to contact him and beg him to forgive you if you want him to come back." David's nightmare. I didn't know if she had sex with Richard or not, but she was clearly going to do it, and that was enough for me. She said she loved me, but she went off with another guy, planning to get him into bed. I wasn't going to start a family with a woman like that or stay married to her. I turned my phone off, moved out of my apartment the next day, and drove to Austin, Texas, where I had several job openings. On Facebook, I changed my status to single and posted a picture of a cheating couple I had created with artificial intelligence using their online photos of them walking together and holding hands, and wrote, "Ellie's new love, Richard Jones. She left me and I filed for divorce and consider our marriage dissolved." When I checked an hour later, there were dozens of comments from friends who were shocked by my revelation. Several women shared their sadness at my loss and suggested I call them if I wanted someone to talk to. Funny enough, for the first time in months, I had a sense of being wanted and realized that my life wasn't over because of a cheating spouse. I found out from some research that Richard was not in the process of divorce and loved his wife and kids. He just enjoyed preying on unsuspecting women a little more. He really enjoyed seducing his wife and turning her husband into a cuckold. It gave him a sense of power after he had possessed his wife. It was a high for this selfish man. The need for power over these women and their husbands was his addiction. Allie was stunned to find out that Richard had lied to her about everything. She made sure his wife found out about their affair and how he pursued all the women at work. There was to be some upheaval in Richard's life in the near future. Divorce court. "Mr. Wilkes, where is your client? David was supposed to be in court on the day of the divorce trial. The judge was furious when he didn't show up and asked his attorney where he was. The lawyer said he didn't know, but he was sure he would be here soon. She called a 15-minute recess and said if he wasn't here, she would hold him in contempt of court. Joshua Wilkes, his attorney, called David on his cell phone and soon realized that David had no intention of attending the mandatory court hearing. He told his attorney that he was stuck in traffic. When the judge returned, Joshua stood up and spoke to the judge. "Your Honor, my client is stuck in traffic and is desperately trying to get here." "Well, that's too bad. I have other business today. Your client is charged with contempt of court, and I'm imposing a $1,000 fine. I have reviewed the case file and require 3 counseling sessions before the next court date within 60 days. Tell your client that if he does not attend counseling or appear in court, I will impose 30 days in jail and another fine. Do you understand my ruling today?" "Yes, Your Honor." Joshua reprimanded his client and told him he had better follow the judge's order. After waiving mandatory counseling, he agreed and said he would do so if it would finalize the divorce counseling. It was the first time she'd seen David since she'd made the stupid decision to be with Richard. She ran up to him with her arms outstretched, but was pushed away and ignored. After she pulled herself together after the resulting crying fit, the counselor started over. Ellie started the session. She told David how much she loved him and how sorry she was for not realizing what she was doing. She went on to explain that she had never had sex and had gone home as soon as she realized what she was doing. She cried and begged him for forgiveness. When it was his turn to speak, he began with a question. "Doctor, just to be clear, you expect complete honesty from both of us if these sessions are going to be of any value, correct?" "Yes, David. You have both agreed to be completely honest, and these sessions are off the cuff. It's important that you both speak freely and honestly." "Thank you, Doctor." As he turned to Ellie and looked directly at her for the first time since she had left on her trip, he felt his heart beat faster as resentment and misery reared its ugly head again. "This is hard for me, Ellie, and I hope you'll be honest. You say you didn't have sex with Richard. Nothing happened, and I should understand and forgive your actions. Am I entitled to that?" Tears filled her eyes as she smiled and said, "Yes, David, nothing happened, and as soon as I read your note, I realized what I was doing and ran home to you." "Okay, I understand, but I know you, Allie, and you're not the kind of woman who can just be with another man. I mean, you've never been a slut or that type of woman. Wouldn't you agree?" "Of course not. I'm not a whore, and you know it," she said, holding out her hand to David. He didn't take her hand, which hung in the air until she yanked it away. "I know you're not a whore, Ellie, but I also know that you would never get another man into bed if you didn't have a connection or feelings for that man. See, because I know you're not a whore, I know you had feelings for Richard. Am I right?" She knew she would have to admit that she had feelings or that she was a whore, so she said quietly, "Well, yes, but I don't love him. I've always loved only you." "Yeah, I loved you too, Allie. But you see, that's the problem I have with this whole affair. Yes, I consider it an affair. Tell me, did you spend any personal time with him? Did you have lunch or drinks with him after work?" "Of course we worked together." "Well, that makes sense, so I'll take that as a yes. Now the truth, Allie. Have you ever walked with him holding hands?" Ellie couldn't look him in the eye anymore and said very quietly, "Yes." "I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Did you hold hands?" "Yes, but I didn't love him." "You said that. I know you didn't love him. Tell me, did you ever kiss him passionately?" "Only once, I swear." David couldn't explain what had happened, but all his pain, anger, resentment, and humiliation found an outlet in the form of tears. Her confession had caused all his stress to come out in the form of a river of tears. As he spoke, tears dripped from his face onto his shirt and lap. David was a big, strong guy who never cried, and when Allie saw the tears, it had an impact she hadn't expected. When the tears flowed, David looked straight into her eyes and calmly asked another question. "Ellie, one last question. If I hadn't sent that note along with the underwear you planned to wear for your lover, would you have slept with him that night?" She didn't want to answer and sat nervously, watching his tears continue to drip. After a moment, the doctor spoke. "Ellie, it's important to find out now. You're in a safe place and you shouldn't be holding back. Please answer David's question. David, I love you, and I would never intentionally hurt you. But if you hadn't stopped me with that note, I would have made the worst mistake of my life and slept with him. But you saved me, and for that, I am eternally grateful. Baby, we need to stay together. Turning to the doctor, covered in tears, David said, Doctor, this is why I can't stay married. You see, she had serious intentions of sleeping with him. The actual act is irrelevant. Intent is all that matters in my mind. If she did it once, I know she would do it again under the right circumstances, and I won't live with that hanging over my head. For the rest of our years together, I would remember her intention to be with someone she wanted more than our marriage. I always wondered if she still wanted that, or if she was planning another session. No, she was done with it when she got on the plane, knowing all along what she was going to do. Over the next 3 weeks, David attended the necessary sessions, and 3 months later the divorce was finalized. But not without constant calls and requests to stop the divorce and give her another chance. The calls from her father, sister, and their friends were the same. They all told him he was a fool because she hadn't had sex with Richard. David tried to explain how he felt, but they all thought he should forgive her mistake and reconcile their marriage. She loved him. He was being childish, and he should have been a man and stepped up and accepted her back. After he got tired of listening to his little ego get in the way of their reconciliation, he basically told each of them to go to hell and never speak to him again. After that, he took several contract jobs around the country, left town, and never looked back. Ellie still called and begged him for forgiveness, and he finally had to block her number. He thought she finally got the message. She was still young and would find another man, but he hoped she had learned her lesson and would remain faithful in her next relationship. David's revenge on Richard. It had been almost a year since that horrible day, but I never forgot about little Richard. I was now working all over the country with no connection to home. It was then that I put my revenge plan into action. Before I left, I set up a remote connection to the home internet, which gave me access to Ellie's computer. She had a habit of coming home from work, logging into her company's VPN and sending her reports. Of course, when she was done, she just closed the lid thinking the system was shut down. Before leaving town, I took advantage of the lack of proper security on her laptop and just remotely accessed her system, which was still connected to the company's internal network via VPN. You gotta love lazy support staff who care more about simplifying their job than security. I make a lot of honest money this way, so I really shouldn't complain, but I got distracted. Then I opened her email and sent Richard an email with a rootkit embedded in the link that he would be sure to open. The email he saw was to come from Ellie, which said, "Richard, check this out and let me know what I look like." Unable to resist such an email from Ellie, he clicked on the link. The link activated malware and was quickly placed on every server Richard could touch, waiting for my instructions, while all he saw was an error message. He did this several times before he realized the link wasn't working and asked Ellie about it tomorrow. As expected, the predator clicked the link and gave me access to the company's Holy of Holies. I then erased all evidence that the email had come from Ellie and the remote access logs on her laptop. And when they checked, they found no email, no link, and no record of the incident. With any luck, their IT staff would just ignore the report and move on to other, more pressing problems. I waited a week before starting my activity. Using a VPN and several remote servers in 8 different countries, I installed several programs on Richard's company's main server to help me complete my work. After a few hours, I accessed their most valuable files and downloaded the company's financial statements, HR salaries, engineering and projects that were about to be sent in for patent approval. These patents would be worth millions to the company. Then I wanted to have some fun with Richard, so through his work computer, I registered him on several adult sites, including 2 that were on the deep web and the dark web. By accessing his life through his computer, I used his credit card and bank information. It was easy to register him and use his company's computer without his knowledge. I set up a program to move any messages from these sites to a hidden file I created on his computer that only I had access to. In this secret, hidden file, I uploaded dozens of images and videos of baby videos, company charts, and secret engineering documents, and began my Burn Richard campaign. Over the next month, using his company email account, I sent several documents to their top competitors from his company email account, asking when payments would be transferred to his account. I then performed a rudimentary deletion of the emails sent. Richard was hired because of his financial experience, not his technical skills, so like most newbies, he thought that once the emails and files were deleted, all traces would disappear. But with any type of investigation, evidence would be easy to find. Then, from his computer, I started sending baby-banned images to sites that I knew were being monitored by the FBI. Within a week, I had sent over 100 images that would definitely get the FBI's attention. At the same time, I paid one of my employees to plant a USB drive with dozens of child porn images in Richard's apartment. It took them less than 2 days to find a way to get in and install the device. It was all part of my plan. Of course, I was careful throughout the process, using a VPN and multiple remote servers, as well as my cybersecurity expertise, to erase any possible connections to myself. 10 days later, a team of 6 FBI agents entered Richard's office while he was in a meeting with the president of the company. The agents entered waving guns and yelling, "FBI, nobody move!" as they crowded into the office. The scene was surreal, and the entire office staff froze in fear and watched the scene unfold, remaining frozen in place and speechless. "We have an arrest warrant for Richard Jones and full access to your company's servers. We are aware of certain federal offenses. You will take us to your IT department immediately." The president threw Richard a scornful look, turned and led the 2 FBI agents to their IT department. Despite the president's irritated objections, the FBI took the company's servers and all their data, resulting in a complete lockdown of the company. When word of this got out, their competitors quickly got involved and started calling their customers. Richard single-handedly, with my help, brought the company to its knees with his misdeeds, for which he was fired and sued by the company. Richard's federal case was highly publicized. The company he worked for was in trouble and may not have survived Richard's turmoil. The scandal ruined the company's reputation and made Richard a national disgrace. He was found guilty of 200 counts of possession of child-prohibited content, wire fraud, corporate espionage, federal theft, and extortion. 25 years in prison, minimum 20 for good behavior. His wife divorced him, and his children will never have anything to do with him again. He lost everything when he tried to screw over the wrong person. As a side note, Ellie became collateral damage after a story leaked about her affair with Richard the pedophile. The story was published on several major national news sites. Somehow these national news sites were hacked, and the story went viral for over a week. The headlines told the story of a cheating spouse and her relationship with pedophile Richard Jones on Valentine's Day. The hacker nicknamed him in the articles after he was arrested on February 14th, Valentine's Day. "Happy Valentine's Day, Ellie." Ellie's picture, her address, her place of employment, and her divorce were made public. She couldn't go anywhere without hearing nasty comments or catching nasty looks. She eventually lost her job after becoming infamous for her association with the man. Her future job opportunities didn't look promising, and her circle of acquaintances would now be filled with perverts and cheating husbands. Funny how karma can work sometimes.